I'm not going to tell you I can fix Washington from Springfield, but we need to fix Washington too.
Would you be in favor of something like a couple other states have done so far, which is basically a State Sovereignty Act, where they've essentially said that the federal government has certain limitations, and if they've overstepped those bounds constitutionally, we will not endorse whatever they pass. And some of it's gun control, but some of it could be used for health care, for other issues as well.
And that's fine. That's fine and that's good. But for instance, and we're kind of headed there anyway, one of the questions that is on the list refers to the 10th Amendment. Mm-hmm. One of the problems, and that's part of what we're talking about, mm-hmm. and when you think about even Illinois' motto, is basically the 10th Amendment, that we have national union and state sovereignty, mm-hmm. and that's great. But the difficulty with the 10th Amendment and being able to really push back hard on Washington is that Congress uses it. Congress is doing very many questionable things these days, there's no doubt. But Congress also, long ago, learned that it can use its constitutionally granted powers to do things it shouldn't. And the fact of the matter is that the Constitution does allow Congress to tax and spend money. They hold purse strings, and they use those. And I'll give you two classic examples. One is back when I was a teenager, and they forced the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit on the nation, not by saying that states had to enact it, but by saying you'll never receive any federal highway funding unless you enact it. And they yanked on the purse strings. Right now, one of the problems with health care in Illinois is that under the Blagojevich administration, the states have the right to establish their own Medicaid eligibility. And Governor Blagojevich just opened it up so that almost anybody's eligible for Medicaid in the state of Illinois. But right now, we can't change that because part of the Stimulus Act said that any state that took stimulus money could not change its Medicaid eligibility. And they've done it again. They just keep doing it. And so the problem that we have in this situation is because Congress does hold purse strings and because that impacts states, we don't have as much sovereignty as we would otherwise. Again, and I'll tell you, my congressman, Phil Hare, is a perfect example of this. This is why he needs to be replaced. He absolutely needs to be replaced, and I make no bones about it. This is a man who says that all pork barrel spending is good to him, who literally has said in public, in my presence, that he believes that's why, this is a paraphrase, he believes that's why we send representatives to Springfield and to Washington to help bring back a little bit of it, help to bring some of it home. And as long as we have people in Congress who are willing to fleece the American public through overtaxation and then just dribble it back to us, and we have a citizenry that will accept that, we're going to have a messed up government. What we need to do is fix this at the ballot box, and I believe 2010 is going to be a huge year for that.
Well, let me ask you, just to stay on that for just a second, because sometimes people have two views of bringing home the bacon. One of the views is pork barrel of wasteful spending. Other ones are like, well, that's bringing jobs to the area, and that's bringing good economic growth to our area. And a good example is not far, if it's just maybe in your district, Thompson, which we'll go into.
Yes.
People believe that's going to be bringing jobs to Thompson by making that a federal prison. So what is the difference between bringing the bacon home in terms of positive and negative, and is there a positive or negative, or is it just all negative or just all positive?
Well, the fact of the matter is that if we have a situation where there's an abundance of money, of tax money for government, then there's no reason for the government to sit on piles of money, and it should get that back. Actually, what it should do is stop taking in so much. But that's part of the seduction. That's part of the lure. Right. When I spend money, when Congress spends money on you, it's pork. When Congress spends money on me, it's good sound fiscal. It's good spending. And the fact of the matter is that we have to quit this carrot and stick mentality. And I'm telling you that if I'm elected and go to Springfield, I'm going to run and I'm going to actually serve in a manner consistent with that philosophy. That it's not about us taking it away and then handing it out like it belongs to the government. It doesn't. This is the people's money. It should stay in the people's hands as much as possible. And in regard to the economic stimulus aspect, Yes, government spending can stimulate, but even we've seen massive government spending through the stimulus program, and it's failed miserably. And of course, anybody who has a good sound grasp of economics could have seen this coming. The best way to build jobs is to make an environment where we have opportunity, for people to start businesses, to pursue the opportunities and to pursue the challenges that will let them get people good, solid jobs. Government jobs aren't really the answer.
Yeah, and I think we're getting to the point where almost 10% of the United States works for the government at some level. So it's getting to the point where we are making that shift.
Yes.
I want to switch the subject a little bit to energy dependence. A lot of people think this is a national issue, but it's not. And Illinois is a good example of a state that probably could be energy independent on their own, but is not. What is your thoughts on energy dependence, and how do we get off the idea of depending on other nations for our energy supplies?
The United States is a very energy-rich nation. We have massive reserves of oil, natural gas, and also coal, and we are basically the equivalent of the Middle East in fissionable material. All of these are just amazing possible sources that we are underutilizing. We've been underdeveloping our ability to be energy self-sufficient for decades. We haven't been building refineries. We haven't been doing the kinds of exploration and drilling that we need to and could, and that other countries are doing. And the fact of the matter is that we cannot have that's one of the reasons we're so insecure as a nation, is because the very people who are perhaps the least likely to be good to us are the people who are providing us with our energy. Mm-hmm. And we need to develop our own sources of energy and move forward with those. That's the answer to energy independence.
So as a state person, if you go down to Springfield, there's things that you can do. Again, it's one of those situations where we have, as far as the state goes, we have quite a few nuclear reactors in our state compared to other states. Mm-hmm. It seems like the ability to create more may be stymied by federal regulation more than state issues, but is there some things we can do in the state level to help Illinois use more of their natural resources? We obviously have corn and soybeans, so biodiesel, ethanol. We have nuclear. We have coal, a lot of coal. Mm-hmm. And actually they found we've had some oil reserves as well in the state of Illinois. So is there things the state level can do, or is this once again a situation where the state is kind of handcuffed by the federal government? Mostly
this is a federal issue because it's the feds who have been standing in the way of this. But obviously, there again, what we need to do is we need to have a climate in Illinois that supports all kinds of worthwhile business and makes an environment. We should be able to hang a shingle out for Illinois that says, we're open for opportunity. Mm-hmm. We aren't now. We have problems we have a dreadful workers' comp system. Our workers' compensation insurance system is very bad. We have concerns, as we've talked about already, with Medicaid and a number of other things. We have too large a government. We need to trim back on all those things. It's fascinating. When you look at the states that ring around us, one thing is that one of the problems with the 71st District is that it has too many bridges out of it, and people are fleeing Illinois. Now, the good news is that our nearest neighbor, Iowa, is also our least competitive neighbor. Illinois is about 41st, if I recall, in the nation for economic situation, about 41st. Iowa's in the mid-30s. Wisconsin and Missouri are in the mid-20s, and the state that has it right is Indiana. Indiana has a smart, responsible government. And you know what? One thing Illinois could do to save infrastructure, Illinois could just make all the roads in the eastern half of the state one way, because that's where everybody's going. They're all going into Indiana. The governor of Indiana said, I don't need stimulus money because I have Illinois and Michigan as neighbors. That's all the stimulus I need. That's the difference, is that when you have a smart, well-run government, good things just happen, because that's the nature of capitalism in a free society.
Well, let's talk about that. There's a lot of discussion in the news. Again, this is more of a federal question, but then again, it impacts state all the time. And the states will have burdens, and the state will have to follow laws, unless, again, that there's things they can do at the state level. And that is the idea of climate change. And I wanted to get your response to this question. Oh, go ahead.
Well, actually, before we move on to that, and I'm very interested in talking about it, let me add a couple of things about what can we do in the United States in regard to healthcare. I mean, how can we fix it?
Sure.
Two things I think that would make